many of you in here are parents? Okay, how many of you are not? How many of you are still thinking about something else and have no idea what I just asked you? Okay, good, I have all your attention. So, for those of you who aren't parents, it's fine. You can relate to this story this analogy I'm about to use because you were at one point a professional baby. So I want to connect with, so in my prior speech I talked about fear and overcoming fear and pushing through anxiety because that's what makes us grow. That's what makes us actually reduce our fear, reduce our anxiety by actually taking the actions and steps to confront it. But I didn't really give you a lot on what to do or how to do that. Well, it's great if you just try, if you actually go out there and you start confronting it, that'll create results. But one of the best methods is baby steps. So imagine a little baby starting off, has always crawled, or sometimes they actually don't even crawl first, but they get up the first time, they wobble, and then they just, Then the next time they wobble, and then they fall on their butt. And then one time they wobble, and then bam, right on their face, and they start crying, right? And what if in that moment, that baby internalized the fear of failure? Oh, I'm not good at walking. I guess that's not for me. That would be weird, right? I mean, think about it. Everyone you know that's physically capable of walking in this world has walked, has learned to walk. Why they never had to confront the fear of failure. They just did. They just kept doing it. And they took another step, and they took another step. And after a while, it went from a wobble, flopping, and hurting themselves to actually walking upright. And so, sometimes we need to change our perspective and our paradigm that failure is just a lesson to whatever it is. We just need to begin to take that first step. So when I talk about paradigm and changing our perspective, imagine this for a moment. So this mother sees her daughter with 2 apples and says to her daughter, "May I have one of those apples? I'd like an apple." Her daughter takes a bite out of one and chews it. And her mom looks down at her and says, "May I have an apple?" The daughter takes a bite out of the other apple. The brat took a bite out of both apples. "May I have one?" is what she asked. And she goes, "Here, Mom, have this one. It's sweeter." And sometimes we make decisions and we have fears that constrict us from doing things because we have a perspective we already have in place, based on a past experience, based on our own thinking, but not based on another scenario. A good example of this for me, and if I've gotten to know you a bit, I might have actually shared this story for you or with you before, was 2 years ago. I was in Hawaii with my wife. And by the way, I at the time described myself as an introvert, afraid of talking to people. And we were at the grocery store. We picked up a box of ice creams that was too much for us. And so we're out in the parking lot and we see some construction going on, and there's some construction workers. And they are hot and sweaty. It's midday and been working hard. And my wife says, "Oh, go give them those ice creams. Give them some free ice creams." I'm like, that's weird. Why would they do that? They don't know me. But if you were working hard out in the sun and someone offered you a free ice cream, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be nice? But I had my own perception, just like this mother did of her child beforehand, thinking her baby's a brat, but her baby loved her. And I had to begin to change my perception. But the way I changed my perception was by taking baby steps. So I actually just, when I'd go around in life, I'd begin to say, "Hi, how are you doing today?" Just greet, say hi. I always thought that was weird, but then I realized people smiled back. So the person that looked like a jerk, I then made it a little challenging. "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, ready for him to give me this look. But then their face, "Hey, how you doing?" I had some people start asking me questions. I'm like, I'm not starting a conversation, I'm just saying hello. Then I start greeting, and thanking the people who are serving me in the stores for their service. That all the time before, I would just walk in and walk out, doing business as usual, as if they were nothing. And I didn't realize that was the impact I had. But when I began to say, "You know what, you must be in here all day. I really appreciate you taking the time to bag my groceries. It's perfect. Thank you." They may have not been thanked all day. And so I said hi. I started acknowledging people and greeting them. Now, you may have your own fears or anxieties or things you confront on your own, and that could be a myriad of things. That could be challenging conversations as a leader, as a manager, in a relationship, as a husband or a wife. You have to confront those things, but you have to start with something. So begin to ask yourself, what would that baby step be? Don't try. We've all heard it. How do you eat an elephant? Take a bite at a time. Another thing that we've been taught is not just practice makes perfect, but what kind of practice? What do we say? We say perfect practice. But that's a lie. Because if all we did was practice perfectly every time, we would never ride a bike. Why? Because the last 12 times I rode, I fell over. So that means I will fall over more often in the future. But no, instead, our minds are designed and created so that every time we practice, we actually are fine-tuned. And this is something that Dr. Carolyn Leaf talks in some of her books about the brain that I had briefly mentioned in my last speech. That we actually have to go and practice in this imperfection to actually perfect the way we are. So every athlete has gotten better because they confronted failure over and over and over again. But they started with swinging the bat and missing, throwing the ball off target. What is your first step in confronting your fear, your anxiety? The first baby step for this next week, couple weeks. And then find something to add on top of that, and that's the way you can begin to confront your fears and anxiety.